Welcome, Angus, to the Executive Podcast.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you with us. And I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about what you do and what Wright Johnson Mackenzie does.
I suppose what I do is I'm a partner in the Inverness office of Wright Johnson Mackenzie. So we are solicitors, and my job is twofold. Part of my job is to lead the team of 20 that we have here in Inverness and to grow our business across the region. And the kind of day job part of my job is as a corporate lawyer. So that's helping people buy or sell or set up businesses, construct kind of commercial collaborations, and help people get organised for succession from one generation to the next.
So you also do private client work. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, we've got a really strong team here in Inverness who service private client work right the way across the Highlands and Islands. And that's all about helping people get their personal affairs in order. So whether that's wills or trusts or powers of attorney or guardianships, helping people where someone has passed away. It's also really important for our business owner clients, because we try and integrate the advice for the business with the personal ownership behind it and helping people get organised for the next generation.
What is the kind of biggest segment of that private client work? Is that kind of wills, or what is the kind of takes up most of it?
It's a mix. There's quite a lot of executory work, which is dealing with someone's estate after they've passed away. But it's also a lot of it is kind of forward looking, so succession planning and helping people get their assets organised in an efficient way and make sure that what they want to happen with their various assets after the death is actually what does happen.
So quite a varied role then.
It is, yeah. It's good fun.
Yeah, it sounds it. So what kind of led you there? What took you on that journey to do what you're doing now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. There weren't any lawyers in my family, so I hadn't really considered law as a career. I went off to university to do politics and Gaelic and psychology, and I had good grades thanks to Milburn Academy in Inverness, and at some point in my first year I decided that I would quite fancy doing something that had a bit more of a career kind of orientation to it, so I went and transferred to do law, and here I am today, although I'm still not quite sure what I want to be when I grow up.
I think a lot of people think that, don't they? I think that's the common thing.
I think so. I think it's healthy. It's good to kind of follow the opportunities, and yeah.
So what did your first kind of law job look like then? Where was that?
Well, I had a couple of summer jobs when I was a student, working for a small law practice here in Inverness, and I did lots of helping out with buying and selling houses and delivering mail and going and picking up scones for everyone in the office and all sorts of things like that. It's good fun.
Yeah, you can't beat some scones. And I guess, what were your big lessons, I think, in those early years of, when you were first kind of starting out? What were the biggest lessons for you that you learned?
I think some of the things that I learned, which slightly surprised me, I think, was that, lawyers are subject matter experts, very highly trained, very analytical, usually pretty smart. That's not universal, but, usually pretty smart. And what I discovered pretty quickly was that all of that technical knowledge, that's great, but that's totally a given. The actual important thing is how you interact with people and the importance of empathy and sitting back and taking time to get to know people and listen to them properly. All of those things are really important as a lawyer. And actually, if you can't do these things, you can't really do the job properly.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that's a skill you possessed before, or is that something you've kind of had to develop over time?
I think I was okay at it, but I've definitely worked on it and had the opportunity to work with mentors who've kind of brought that out in me. So, not the finished article, definitely better than I was. The whole thing is a journey, isn't it?
It really is. And do you ever come across maybe people in your field who don't possess that quality?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, because we value different things, and technical knowledge is really important. it is important that you have it. It's important that you don't make it rule everything you do, though.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then just kind of back to Wright Johnson Mackenzie, you know, you're in the heart of the Highlands here. How is it you help customers and your clients?
I guess a lot of what we do is helping people get organised and plan for the future. And also we do quite a lot of sitting down with clients, spending time with them, understanding what their needs are, helping them maybe articulate what those are, and bringing out, you know, how we can help them do that. And that might be, you know, us doing it ourselves, or it might be working with others, signposting people to other professionals and working as a team to help the client get from where they are just now to where they want to be. You know, we do have wide range of work in Wright Johnson Mackenzie, both commercial and private. So, you know, that's a big aspect of what we do as well.
Yeah, and a big aspect of that is the corporate side as well, which is helping businesses really as well, isn't it?
It is. And, you know, that can be helping people work out, well, you know, where's this business going? You know, planning for an exit maybe, planning for a transition from one generation of ownership to the next, whether that's family ownership or maybe someone coming in as a new leader in a business, helping create a structure that facilitates that, working out what the barriers might be and how to kind of work around them. Yeah, it's really interesting. Businesses in the Highlands are, you know, there's a wide range of size and scale of business operating here, and it's great to work from, you know, kind of support everyone from a sole trader who's working on their own, right the way up to, you know, a kind of big corporate entity.
Yeah, so that's that kind of variety again. And
yeah.
Is that one of your favourite parts about it? What's kind of your favourite part about your role?
Oh, that's good. I think probably one of the things I like most is seeing a project right the way through, maybe a transition from one generation of ownership to the next in a family business, because that's you know, there's a lot tied up in that. It's, yes, financial considerations are important, but there's a lot more in a family business in particular. There's a lot more emotion. You know, we think of business as being a kind of cold calculating, you know, mathematical, financial kind of enterprise, but actually family businesses are founded on love and relationships as well. So being able to help a family kind of make that transition from one generation to the next is really rewarding. The other thing that's really good is, you know, when someone gets to the point where they are exiting a business and it's maybe something they've built up from scratch, and, you know, they've invested blood, sweat and tears in it over a long period of time, but they've got to the stage in their life where they want to retire and they want to sell. And helping someone sell a business, I think is great, because you're kind of helping them realise maybe a long-held ambition to have more time, more leisure, more resource to be able to enjoy the leisure. So that's good fun as well.
Yeah, and it must be hard for people as well, though, to let go something that they've built up.
It is
so long.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the challenging things acting for someone who's selling a business is helping them through that kind of emotional bit. You know, there is a form of grief.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's relief in there too, but you know, it is tricky, especially for someone who's an entrepreneur, who's been a leader in the business and maybe driven it forward. You know, it's hard. Quite often, if you're buying a business, you want the existing owner to stick around for a bit, because there's often a lot of knowledge in their heads that's very helpful in making that transition. It's quite challenging if you've been your own boss for 30, 40 years to then be someone else's employee for a couple of years. That's a big
your
challenge.
Own business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, but you know, business? Often that's part of the deal, because it facilitates the transfer and makes sure that the value of the business is protected for the buyer.
Yeah, no, it sounds quite a tricky. Like you say, that grief is there as well. If you're
there's lots, and you just you know, I'm not saying that I'm necessarily a psychiatrist or a counsellor, but you need to be aware of these things because they inform what you do in the kind of technical job. And
have you ever seen that done really well, kind of that crossover of selling and then somebody kind of mentoring someone else in?
Yeah. You know, if quite a lot of times I've seen it work really well. I've seen it go badly wrong a few times. And often that's just because there are mismatched expectations, which is again one of the reasons why for any acquisition or sale, you need to plan ahead, and you need to plan, how it's all going to work out over the piece. And the price is important. It's a really key part of the deal, but it's not the only part of the deal. So there are other aspects that you need to kind of tie down and make sure everyone's got a clear expectation of what the role is going to be post-sale and how long that might last and what the objectives might be. That all helps to make it a smooth process.
Yeah. No, expectations are a big thing, aren't they? They're really important.
We all want to know how things are going to play out, and it's easier to kind of deal with events as they come along if you've got a bit of a plan for it. Yeah,
definitely. And are you kind of there during that whole process as well, or once it's been acquired, is that kind of hands off for you? How does that work?
It depends. So sometimes depending on the size or complexity of the business, our involvement can come to an end pretty quickly. But if there's someone who, if we're acting for a seller, we might stick around a bit and give them some advice on, well, what happens next? Because if you sell a business, you've turned a very tax efficient asset into probably a lump of cash that's not very tax efficient. So if you get run over by a bus tomorrow, stuff that would have been exempt from inheritance tax, for example, is suddenly a big chunk of value could disappear. So it's important to kind of work that into your thinking as well. What are you going to do with this, and how are you going to, you might roll it over into another investment. You might have other things that you want to do with your life. So we kind of help with that as well.
Yeah, help with that forward planning.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about your journey into your role, but in terms of young people coming into your firm, how does that work? What does that look like?
Well, actually, funnily enough, we've just finished a couple of weeks of our kind of summer internship program. So we had some folk across our business join for a couple of weeks, law students at a fairly early stage in their career, just helping them get a bit of exposure to what's it like in practice, because the academic stuff is quite different from the practical stuff. And on the way here, I was just in the car before I was dropped off, looking at the email with feedback from our HR team, from the interns, just really good feedback about people who've enjoyed themselves. So that's part of what we do, is give people that kind of taster. And we also have a training program. So as a firm, we take on trainees every year. So they will stay with us for a 2-year training contract, and hopefully then, where there are vacancies, stay with the firm long term, which is what I did.
Yeah. And do you have to have a degree? Because I'm assuming those people have gone to uni and then they're there for their traineeship. But could somebody who's got no kind of previous background, could they approach you and then be like, can I do some in-house training with you?
Yeah, there are different routes. The kind of most common route is to do a law degree that ticks all the boxes for the Law Society's kind of curriculum. And then you do a postgrad diploma in legal practice, and then do a 2-year traineeship. So that would take, kind of 6-7 years in total. There are other routes. So the Law Society does its own exams, and a relatively small number of people do the Law Society exams while working for a law firm in a kind of pre-diploma training contract. So there are different routes. The route that we most commonly use is the kind of degree diploma traineeship route, but we have had folk who have joined as paralegal staff and then kind of transferred into becoming legal trainees and fully qualified lawyers. So yeah, there are various options around.
Yeah, it sounds like there are. And in terms of, if we look at the Highlands as a wider region at the moment, we have seen a lot of like recruitment challenges for companies, no matter what they are. Is that something you have been dealing with as well as a firm? And how do you overcome that?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge, I think, for every professional services firm that, I grew up in Inverness, and at that stage there was no option. I had to go away to university.
Yeah.
And what often happens is that people go away and they kind of stick. And then, which is again what I did, I went to Glasgow and lived 17 years in exile in Glasgow before coming back to Inverness. But there is what we aspire to do is develop trainees here, and also look to recruit qualified lawyers. There is a greater demand than there is a supply locally, and that's a challenge. I think there are more opportunities in the Highlands than people realise, across all the kind of professional disciplines. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to explain, actually, there are some really interesting and exciting things happening here, and you can build a rewarding professional career here in the Highlands. And lots of things on the horizon that, look like they're, could have a transformative effect on the Highland economy. And that'll just mean more demand for, good professional services. Yeah.
And if, we've talked about the professional reasons there, why people could come and work in the Highlands, but why would you say to someone to come and live here? What would be your thing of why do you enjoy living here?
Well, I mean, I can't think of anywhere better to live, I mean, the Highlands, everyone knows that the environment here is fantastic. There are, kind of logistical challenges, but I think, someone living in a city environment in the Central Belt, if they've not been to the Highlands, they don't really know. So I always say to folk, come to Inverness, come to the Highlands, spend a bit of time here, understand how fabulous, the environment is, and, all the fantastic things that you can do, and the kind of culture. So this part of the world is different.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah. It's kind of distinct in what it offers, isn't it? And what drew you back? You said you spent 17 years in exile. But I don't know how Glaswegians would feel about that. But what drew you back to
Well, it was a combination of things. I had family here, and my kids were just, my older daughter was just at the point of going to school. So it was the kind of natural time. If we're going to make a move, then it was the natural time. And then there was just an opportunity as well, a professional opportunity, because Wright Johnson Mackenzie were looking to expand, and we're looking at different markets, and the Highland market seemed to us to be one where there was an opportunity to kind of develop something, and that's what we've done.
Amazing. So how long ago was that?
That was 2011.
2011.
Which is scary. I can't quite believe it. Feels like a blink of an eye, and also a very long time.
So how has that evolved for 11 years ago then? Right, was that when Wright Johnson Mackenzie kind of started their base here in Inverness?
Yes, me and a laptop. That was
wow. So you were the first one.
Yeah.
And how
so
that evolve?
I got that job. I'd been a partner for a few years in Glasgow, and I got the opportunity to come home and build a business, and that was really exciting. And we did it in a number of ways. Some organic growth. I did a lot of turning up to every chamber event, and every opening of an envelope, and just getting to know people. And we also acquired some businesses over a period of time, and we've kind of developed the office from there.
And that must be, did you find that daunting at all, having to kind of go out and approach people like that? Or
I did. I'm actually kind of quite a shy, reticent person, so I had to work on that.
Yeah.
But no, I've really enjoyed it. The most daunting thing was that I was a partner in the firm, and I basically handed over my client base that I had in Glasgow and went to kind of start from scratch. Not quite from scratch. We had some clients here, and some very long-standing clients for whom I still act, who were really supportive of the move. But yeah, it did take a bit of a deep breath and a gulp. But sometimes you just have to take a calculated opportunity chance, and go for it.
And it's paid off.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the whole process. It's been really interesting. A lot of hard work, but good fun too.
Yeah. And you are now in the heart of the Highland community. What is it you do to support the community as well? What kind of things do you do to, or do you have any initiatives that you're doing that support?
Yeah, we do kind of regular kind of fundraising and dress down days and things like that. And in fact, we've just recently, we're just in the process of taking the baton from R.I. Cruden of the Mikey's Line Cup of Kindness initiative. So we're going to be looking after that for the next 3 months in our office. And at some point I'll be finding someone to hand it over to at the end of the 3 months. So we do these kind of things. And, we do a bit of pro bono work here and there and these kinds of things.
So there's lots of little bits and pieces. Kind of create that. And, we've already talked about you kind of being there at the end of maybe somebody's business journey or the family kind of passing through of a business. But I kind of want to circle back to, if somebody was starting a business, what advice would you give them? Or what kind of things would you suggest for them to do?
Have in mind what your exit plan is from when you start, which sounds like an easy thing to do, and it's not. But the more you can have in your mind, where's this going, that helps direct, your activity. So is this a business that you're planning to grow and sell? Or is it a business that you're planning to grow and pass on to someone else in the family? These are actually kind of important things to have in your mind.
Yeah.
There are serial entrepreneurs who will grow a business to a certain level, pass it on, start afresh, multiple times in their career. And they will have developed the skills of, systematizing a business from day one. So you can build and grow a business with everything in your own head so far. But actually, when you come to sell that, or if you want to, kind of pass it on, that's actually tricky because it's very, very dependent on you. And successful businesses that I've seen grow to scale have been good at, from the beginning, thinking, well, what do I need to do to, build a brand here that is an asset? Or take the way I do things, which is different to my competitors' way of doing things, and actually systematize it. Let's write it down. Let's have a CRM system that supports the way we do things, and actually create systems that then give you assets that you can point to over and above your P&L. That you can say, well, here is what I can offer to an investor or a buyer in the future. Or if you are growing a business and the principal idea is that you're going to generate income and that will support you and your family, that's absolutely fine and that's great. You don't have to have a plan to rule the world or take over the world.
Yeah.
But being clear, I think, from the outset as much as you can. The reality, of course, is that real life gets in the way, and genuine entrepreneurs see opportunities and grab them and pivot towards them. So sometimes you just need to roll with those punches.
Yeah. And I mean, I just think that's so interesting to think when you're first starting a business to have an exit strategy. Because I'm impulsive by nature. I would think if I was going to just start a business, I would be like, okay, well, what is it? There would be no forward planning. So is that where you come in?
Well, we can help. We certainly help with that and kind of prompt and ask the questions. Sometimes, sometimes part of my job is just to sit down with someone and just chew the fat a bit.
Yeah.
And a lot of my job is about managing risk. But the flip side of that is when you're managing risk, you're also identifying opportunity. And, so sometimes it is about just grasping, well, here's a thing I can do and it's going to make a profit. Let's go for it. And that's fine. I've seen very successful clients who have ended up with, 3 or 4 businesses. And sometimes that's, really interesting for us because actually someone's ended up with a really complicated kind of structure. They've got a partnership and they've got 2 companies and they've got things in their own name, assets in their own name that actually their businesses use. And that's because they've just seen the opportunities and followed them. And that's the entrepreneurial spirit. But sometimes then when you get to a stage in your life when you think, well, okay, how am I going to retire? The complexity of that structure can become a barrier. And part of our job is to help sort out the blocks, the bits of the jigsaw to put it into a more organized, rational kind of structure that facilitates someone's intentions and ambitions.
Yeah, so it's kind of, getting that puzzle pieces together.
Yes, yeah.
And I guess then apart from that, are there any other legal considerations that businesses kind of need to look at when they're starting up?
Yeah, lots. I mean, thinking about brand is important. Working out, actually what are your contracts going to be when you interact with others in the outside world, whether that's suppliers or customers. Have you got that organised? Have you got things working the way you need them to work? If you're a creative business, for example, how can you give your clients what they need in terms of the work that you're doing, but also maybe allow yourself to build up a portfolio that has value for the future. So if you're going to kind of generate a piece of work that actually might have 5 or 6 different applications, can you organise it so that your contract allows you to take the value of that work and adapt it for others in a way that doesn't disadvantage your customer, your first customer, but means you get value for your work and you're not kind of, in effect, a wage slave for someone else, but you're actually building value in your business. So planning ahead about brand, about systems, about contracts, these kind of things are kind of important.
They're okay. And talking about planning ahead, 2011 you started here in Inverness. What's next for Wright Johnson Mackenzie?
Well, we've just recently tied up with Irwin Mitchell, which is one of the biggest full-service law firms in the UK. And so I've suddenly got 3,000 new colleagues south of the border and eager to use their skills and experience for the benefit of my clients. So there are some exciting times ahead with that. Irwin Mitchell are, they've got a really strong business law practice and a really strong personal law practice, so private client work as we'd call it here, which is something that we're very strong on in the Highlands as well. And also they've got great international connections. So with things like the Green Freeport on the horizon, that's going to be something that's going to be really exciting, I think.
So many things to come.
Loads of things, yeah. I mean, I think the Freeport is a potentially transformative kind of project for everyone. And I think it's incumbent on us as a business community here to lean into that challenge and to make the most of it. Because it's not just about the, very welcome, eye-watering kind of sums of big capital investments that are happening. It's that, but it's also the kind of knock-on effect of that for the supply chain and for communities all the way across the Highlands. And I think the challenge that we have as a business community is, well, let's engage with this and let's make sure the money sticks here, speaking frankly, and, makes a difference, not just right now, but for generations to come. I think that's where the real kind of benefit can be of the Freeport, is actually that kind of legacy for the Highlands and Islands and Moray as a whole for the future. And
how do we make that happen? Because I know we've seen maybe Highland Council talk about a pot that they're going to create for generations to kind of come, but what else does that look like?
Well, I think there are going to be big supply chain opportunities as well, and for all that it creates, kind of infrastructure challenges, there are also opportunities in there. So, Highland Council recently talked about, needing tens of thousands of new homes over the next 10 years to house people. Now, that in itself is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity directly for developers, but it's also an opportunity for tradespeople and other suppliers and other businesses around it. So I think we've got to be kind of creative about it and nimble and also collaborative. I think there's real power in collaboration, and I think we should not be frightened of it. If it's done right, then you can create something where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, and we should approach it with a collaborative mindset, I think.
Yeah, collaboration is key, and I think in the Highlands, there's a lot of testament to that,
Yeah.
Businesses support other businesses here.
Yeah.
So, it'll be exciting to see. How would people get in touch with yourself and Wright Johnson Mackenzie?
Either via our website, which is wgm.co.uk, or give us a phone at the Inverness office, which is 234445. That's an Inverness number. I'm so old, I haven't said 01463.
No, I know, because you have to put it in now when you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Never
Most
used
inconvenient.
To have to.
No.
I know. And my last question for you then is, when you were, starting out, when you decided to change degrees and go on to do law, looking back now, what would be the one piece of advice you would give yourself then? If you could tell yourself a piece of advice.
Obviously that was a very, very long time ago now. One piece of advice going back. I think it would be to have a bit more self-confidence. I left Inverness as quite a diffident Highlander, and went to the big city and spent a lot of time watching people. Oh, they know what they're doing. Of course, I now know they didn't know what they were doing. They were not making it up, but they were giving it a go. Mm-hmm. And actually, I think it's really important for young people to give it a go. You've got to have ambition, and you've got to have, I think, the ability to take a step out of your comfort zone. And my experience of doing that is that, it feels tricky, but it pays dividends. It does work, and people are actually really supportive when you're doing something. I've relied a lot on colleagues and mentors, and Wright Johnson made a real investment in allowing me to come to Inverness, and don't be frightened of asking for help.
That's all great advice. Yeah. And, and also the self-confidence, give it a go.
Give it a go.
And don't be afraid of asking for advice. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for your time, Angus. It's been great to have you.
No, it's been fantastic to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation.